Section 10 of Told in the Gardens of Araby by Izora C. Chandler and Mary W. Montgomery. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Doug Wade. The Crystal Kiosk and the Diamond Ship. The narrators of tales and the tellers of stories relate that, once upon a time, there was a king whose children died, one after another. His grief was so great at this that all the wise men and physicians of the kingdom came together in council and inquired, most diligently, of the nurse who had cared for each child in turn. After long debating, they decided that the heir of the outer world had caused the death of the little princes and princesses, and they solemnly advised the king to build a great room deep within the earth, to have ready should Allah graciously favor him with another child. Accordingly, the king commanded such a room to be prepared. All the four sides were well guarded, and the top was nearly covered with an astonishingly great window, to let in the sunlight and moonlight and the rays of the little stars. And into this room was placed all manner of beautiful toys and every precious thing that could add to a child's pleasure. Not long afterward, a dear little princess was born to the king and queen, who, you may suppose, was no sooner born than she was hurried down into the beautiful room which awaited her, and a nurse was appointed to care for her. The king and queen spent many happy hours in the room below the earth, watching the growth of their little daughter, whose perfection of beauty was without equal and cannot be described. Also, she was gentle and patient, and had been taught from the first that although those others came to her, she must not expect to go to them. Finally, to the great delight of her royal parents, and, you can well imagine, of those who had advised this course, the child grew to be healthful and strong, and reached the age of 14 years without having once left that underground abode. But one day, when royal ceremonies detained her parents and the nurse was long in coming, a feeling of sadness came upon her, which was so strong that it impelled her to make a great pile of all the chairs and tables in the place, upon which she climbed to the highest point in the window. Looking out thus, she could see bits of trees and plants. She had heard the dash and roar of waves. Feeling deeply interested in the little she saw, and desiring to learn more of all that was above her own abode, she struck a great pane of glass with the stick used in climbing, and after the pieces fell down in a shower, put her head out through the opening. Upon one side of her stretched the great blue sea, and the sun, shining upon it, made so brilliant a light that her unused eyes refused to look long. "Then there are two worlds," she said wonderingly, "an upper and a lower. And although the lower is very sweet and comfortable, the upper is magnificent and boundless. I wonder that those who come to me can remain there, shut away from all this wonder." Long she remained there, drinking into her soul all the loveliness that stretched all about her. When her body became wearied standing upon the insecure pyramid, she climbed down slowly and went and sat in her accustomed place. When the nurse entered, she discovered that the topmost pane of the window was broken. "Gracious Allah," she cried in terror, "what has fallen through the roof of your room, my princess? Had you been underneath, it might have killed you." Thereupon the princess began to speak. "Calm yourself. Nothing has fallen through my window, and, outwardly, I am unhurt. But my soul has become loosened. It no longer will remain pent in this prison house. Take me out of this place, or, verily, I shall kill myself with longing." The nurse returned no answer. She turned and fled to the king, before whom she stood and related, one by one, the words which his daughter had spoken. The king was thrown into great torment of mind at this news. Again he summoned the doctors and the learned men in council. They shook their heads at the revelation which had come to the princess, but, after questioning the nurse carefully and pondering long, they gave this advice: "O king, let your daughter, our princess, be removed from her underground abode. But let the removal be most gradual, so that her eyes may become accustomed to the unobstructed light of nature. Also, let her walk each day a little farther upon the earth's surface, and then return to her accustomed dwelling place. With care and patience, it is our belief that the princess will, ere long, be able to remain the entire time upon instead of under the earth." Each day after this welcome decision, the nurse led the young girl up the staircase and into the rose garden, where everything delighted her unaccustomed eyes. "It is like entering paradise after death," she exclaimed. But, most of all, the sea enchanted her. Hour after hour, as the days went by, she sat gazing upon its changing waters. The king, noticing this, asked her one day, "What is it, my daughter? That thou lovest the sea is plain, but there is desire in thine eyes. What wouldst thou, my child?" "Oh, my royal father," she said, turning to him, "the sea is so splendid that I am thinking of a place from which it would seem fitting to view its waves." "Tell me the place you would have, my daughter, and I will set my carpenters at work upon it tomorrow," answered the king, who could never cease delighting his eyes with the sight of his child, dwelling, like other children, upon the surface of the earth. "Then, since thou wouldst grant my heart's desire, O my father, build me a crystal kiosk beside this sea which stretches before us. All the divans shall be of gold, set with diamonds, and the chairs and tables gilded. My heart so longs for this that, unless it be granted, I fear that death will come with my longing for it." But the king became sad. He felt that evil was upon him. "Alas, my girl," he cried at first, "still let the kiosk be made according to your wish." Thereupon he summoned the workers in crystal, who set upon building the kiosk. At the end of a year, at exactly the hour of the day when the command was given, the work was finished. Word was sent to the king, who went to look at the completed structure and found it so brilliant as to dazzle the eyes of all beholders. The wonder was that his workmen had not become blind during the year. Only the colored glasses, which they wore suspended before their eyes, had protected them. All the country about was illuminated with the brilliance of this kiosk, which no tongue could describe. When the king returned to the rose garden and sat down beside his daughter, she knew, by his face and the manner in which he regarded her, that her request of a year before was fulfilled. Kneeling before him, she kissed his hand, whereupon he said to her, "Your crystal kiosk is finished, my daughter, and since it is your wish to leave the palace, choose a number of servants from among those most faithful, and go, dwell there, and may peace and happiness attend all your days therein." The princess knelt before her father again, kissed his hands 3 times, then, rising, summoned her maidens, and, entering into the kiosk, took up her abode. There, surrounded by these maidens, she lived, and, most of all, she loved their daily walks beside the sea. Let these now stay here, happy day and night, while we turn away to take notice of the outer world. Every day people came, some in boats and some in litters, all to see the wonderful kiosk. The fame of it reached far away, even into other lands. So it came to pass that the son of the king of Yemen heard of it, and was astonished at the wonderful descriptions, which all who gave them insisted were in no degree comparable with the real splendor. All this wrought upon the young man's mind until he went to the king and said, "My revered and beloved father, the Sultan of Stamboul has built a crystal kiosk beside the sea, which is so beautiful that it has become one of the wonders of the world. May it be your high pleasure that I should go and view this marvel, which has been accomplished by man. It will not require great length of time. Within 3 or 4 months I shall return." The king was pleased that his son felt a desire to know of the world, and gave his consent to the plan. The prince, accompanied by a few of his most intimate companions, went on board an outgoing ship and began the journey. Day and night, without stopping, went the ship. After a considerable space of time, one morning, as the prince and his companions were standing upon the deck of a vessel, a most wonderful vision appeared upon the very edge of the horizon. So brilliant was it that the whole earth seemed illumined with the light thereof. Then the prince turned to his companions, saying, "Verily, this which appears in the distance must be the object which we seek." Several more days passed. The ship sailed nearer and nearer, and every day the wonder grew. Finally, when they were but a little distance, and after the captain had trimmed his vessel so as to view it from 3 sides, the bewildered prince exclaimed, "Do I look upon a vision unearthly, or am I dreaming a dream?" When it became evening, the ship let down her anchor. We will leave the prince upon the deck of his vessel, while we return to the princess within the kiosk. She had noticed the approach of the ship, and had marveled at its strange maneuvers. Finally, when it came to anchor directly in front of her dwelling, she set herself to examine it closely. But the name could not be made out, and while she, with her maidens, were lost in conjecture as to whom it could belong, she saw the prince walking back and forth upon the deck. Now the prince was a youth who resembled the full moon in beauty, and, as this princess was unacquainted with young men, she became greatly interested, and felt a strange drawing of the heart toward him. And the prince, as if feeling the gaze upon him, stopped in his walk and looked directly at the kiosk, where he saw the princess standing in all her beautiful garments, and with the light of the setting sun shining full upon her. The sight was so unexpected and bewildering that he lost consciousness and fell down in a swoon. After a time he recovered, and looked eagerly at the window which had so entranced him, but the princess was not there. "Oh, let me see her once again," he exclaimed, and set himself to watch for her coming. His companions, seeing him quiet and meditative, did not approach, but remained in another part of the ship. 1, 2 hours went by, and the stillness caused him to fall asleep. By this time the princess again appeared at her window, and, seeing him thus, thought he must be ill, sighed alas, and wept bitter tears. The spirit of the wind caught one of her tears, and carried it over to the ship, and laid it upon the prince's cheek, thus causing him to waken at once. When he looked across the water, saw the princess, and knew that she was weeping for him, a pleasant joy wakened within his heart. But his companions, seeing that he was awake, approached and said, "O prince, it is you who have caused the tears to flow from the eyes of this wonderful creature. Call out to her that we are going away, and, if she loves you, we will see that she will do some marvelous thing. Should she accept your going calmly, you may know that she is a siren, whose business and pleasure it is to lure men to their destruction." After more words of this kind, the young men so wrought upon the mind of their prince that, looking over to the window of the kiosk where stood the princess, he cried, "Here is the ship, O princess, and yonder is Yemen." Then he commanded the captain. The ship was made ready to sail, and soon started off in the direction of his home. After some time it reached Yemen, and the king was rejoiced that his son had arrived within the appointed time. Let us return to the princess. With her eyes streaming like fountains, she went to her father and said, "Oh, my king and father, thou who hast granted all my requests thus far, something more would I ask of your love." "It is granted thee, O my child," answered the king sadly, for he feared that the time of separation had come. "Then let me ask for a ship that shall be studded with diamonds without, and whose inner rooms shall be set with precious stones, with rubies gleaming in the pillars thereof. 40 white slaves, all very young, handsome, and wearing gorgeous apparel, must care for it. If this cannot be granted, I fear that my soul must leave the body." "Very well, my daughter," replied the king. "Whose desire but thine should thy father grant? Let the ship be made as you request." The princess knelt before him and kissed both his hands 3 times. Then the king summoned his ship carpenters and jewelers, who set at work that very day. In 2 years' time the strange order was fulfilled. The ship, with its before unheard of magnificence, was delivered to the king, who, in turn, delivered it to his daughter. "I, my father," said she, "since you have been so gracious, will you grant that, with my maidens, I should go for a voyage? If Allah grant his favor, my return shall not be long delayed. Thou knowest, my daughter, that thou art the most precious possession of my whole life. Although it grieves me greatly to part with thee, I cannot refuse anything thou askest me. But do not keep my eyes long watching the restless roadways of the sea, and may Allah give you safe guidance." The two then embraced and kissed each other upon the eyes, after which the princess, taking with her 40 white boy slaves and 40 maidens, with all the necessary furnishing, went aboard the diamond ship and remained there that night. When morning came, the captain commanded a salute, ordered the flag hoisted, and set sail in the glorious light, while all of the people who crowded the shore exclaimed, "What a clever princess we have!" and they sent 100,000 bravos after her. When the ship was well under way, the princess herself assumed command. The captain, who was a wise old seaman, obeyed her joyfully, and was pleased when all the slaves and maidens of her suite were drilled like soldiers. At last they reached Yemen, for, as you may guess, that was their destination, and entering the harbor they cast anchor and remained there that night. The director of the port was notified of their arrival. He went out upon the quay to look at the ship. When the magnificent creation met his eyes, he exclaimed, "I am lost in wonder. Whose royal ship is this? Never has one been seen like it. May Allah protect it from the evil eye." Then he turned and hastened to the palace, where he informed the Shah, saying, "My Padishah, yesterday a ship arrived in port, of such magnificence that no tongue can describe it. Diamonds and precious stones gleam in every part. Your Majesty should gaze upon it, for, indeed, it is fitted only to be seen by the eyes of royalty." Then the Shah sent his vizier to learn what visitor had come to his kingdom, and the vizier, nothing loath, entered a little boat and was rowed directly to the diamond ship. When the princess saw the boat approach, she caused the entire crew to dress themselves in scarlet clothes, and, as the boat reached the accommodation ladder, they drew up to meet the vizier and escorted him to the captain's cabin, where he sat down and began to talk very politely. "O my lord Bey," said he, "the Shah awaits my return. Your servant has come to secure such information as may be granted. Will you deign to give your honored name, that I may convey it to the king?" "I am the son of a merchant," answered the princess captain. "I travel according to my own pleasure, going only where fancy leads." After further words, the vizier returned to his king and said, "My Padishah, this marvelous ship is a merchant's vessel, and its captain is so young that he has neither beard nor mustache. He is a youth who is like unto the 14th of the moon for beauty, and his crew is in keeping with himself. Everything is perfect. Surely your royal highness should visit it." This suggestion found favor in the mind of the king and wakened his desire to see the ship. Accordingly he got into a boat, which was rowed by 7 pairs of oarsmen, and, together with the queen, started for the vessel. When the girl captain saw them coming, she ordered the crew to dress all in yellow, and, as the royal party reached the ship's ladder, it was met with great honor and conducted to the captain's stateroom. Coffee was served, and the captain conversed so agreeably with the king that he was lost in admiration. Finally, after remaining as long as court etiquette would allow, they returned to the palace, where the report of the visit was related to the prince, with such admiring exclamations that desire seized him to view this wonder with the rest. He hastened to the wharf, stepped into a small boat, and was rowed directly into the ship. When the princess captain saw him coming, she ordered her crew to dress themselves all in green, which they did and received their visitor with great honor. They conducted him to the captain's stateroom, where he began conversing with the unknown princess. In spite of his delicate and skillful questioning, she did not betray herself, and the prince felt the same warmth at his heart which had affected him at the sight of the maiden in the window of the crystal kiosk. He remained until evening before he could tear himself away. Let us return to the princess. Word was sent to the director of the port, and arrangements were made to anchor her ship within the inner harbor. After that, the princess, with her attendants and belongings, went ashore and hired the finest house that could be found. It was situated directly in front of the king's palace. Here she took up her abode. Let us return to the prince. The next day, upon going to the place where he had first seen the ship, upon the day before, he could find no trace of it, and beat his head upon the ground in disappointment. Then he went to his tutor to learn if anything were known about the matter. The tutor's answer was one which gladdened the young man's heart. He returned to the palace and sat down at a window to look at the house across the way, if, haply, he might catch sight of the one who had so entranced him. Presently the princess appeared at her window, when his mind fell into a pitiable state. "A young woman," he said to himself. "Who can she be? She is so like him as to be some relative of the young captain who so enchanted me, and both are like that wonderful vision of 2 years ago." As he continued to look at her, standing there with the curls floating down upon either side of her face, he felt that it would be impossible to find her like in the world. When the princess discovered the prince looking at her, she drew back hastily and the window was closed. But the poor young man, whose yielding to companions had caused his undoing before, had fallen more deeply in love this time. He determined not to be thwarted, and went to all sides of the house, grieving miserably at his inability to find her again. Finally, when night came on, he withdrew into his own room, where he became lost in meditation. At the dawn of morning he hastened out to the Kiosk to look again at the other house, but, though he waited long, he was filled with grief to see that the windows continued shut. Unable to bear the suspense longer, he went to his mother, kissed her hand, and said, "Oh, my queen mother, you have long wished me to marry, but I have been unwilling. Now in the house across the way, in the family of this young captain, there is one with whom I am deeply in love. Take her this jewel box, I pray. Give it into her hands, and beg that I may see her again. If this not be brought to pass, life will become of no worth to me." Very much against her will, but because she was a fond mother, the queen, accompanied by a minister of state, sought admittance at the house of the strangers, and was admitted, with due reverence, by the princess herself, to whom the jewel box was presented. The unknown princess accepted it courteously, then summoned the maidens from the kitchen, and, without showing the slightest interest in the contest, gave it to them. The queen could hardly smother her indignation and surprise as she announced, "The prince, my dear young lady, sends you his very special greeting, and is very desirous of meeting you. What answer shall be returned to his royal highness?" The princess seemed lost in such deep thought as to be unconscious of any presence, and did not recover herself, although the queen addressed her twice. After sitting some time, the royal visitors returned to the palace, where the queen said to the prince, in great anger, "My son, I gave the box of jewels to the ridiculous young person in question, and, while she was courteous in receiving it from me, it was given at once to her kitchen servants. After that, no matter how I addressed her, there was no answer vouchsafed. She seemed unconscious absolutely of my presence. I was obliged to return without an answer for you. My son, you are no longer a child. Henceforth you must attend to your own heart troubles." The prince retired to his own room and grieved all that day. The next morning he approached his mother again, and after kissing her hand 3 times said, "Oh, my most revered queen mother, you hold my fate in your hands. You are a woman. Can you not find some way to the heart of this other woman for me?" It was her only son who pleaded before the queen, and she, loving him greatly, turned the matter over in her mind, until thoughts of a very valuable string of pearls, which were her own private property, came to her. "I will give her the pearls," she said to the prince. "We will see what she will do with them." The grateful young man kissed both of his mother's hands, after which she laid the pearls out beautifully in their casket, called her minister of state, and again went to the house across the way. As upon the previous occasion, she was received with grave courtesy by the young princess, to whom she delivered the pearls, along with a more pressing message from the prince. The young woman received the casket most graciously, opened it, turned to her pet parrot, which hung in a cage near at hand, held before it the box in which the beautiful pearls were lying, and waited, silently, while the bird ate each and every one of them, grinding each with a cracking sound in his bill and swallowing it as if priceless pearls made his regular morning repast. In open-mouthed astonishment the queen looked on. Then, without having the ability to utter a word, she arose, swept from the room, and with her minister of state returned to the palace, from which the prince came running to meet her, saying, "I, mother, most honored and beloved, hastened, tell me what thou hast to tell this time." "I, my son, conquer this foolish madness, or no one is wise enough to foretell what will become of us. When I gave the matchless pearls, my most precious possession, into the hands of this mad creature, she received them courteously, but immediately fed them, as if they had been so many kernels of wheat, to her parrot, who swung in a cage near at hand. I could not speak for rage. But the prince cared for the maiden. Pearls were of no account to one in his frame of mind. "Calm yourself, mother dear and honored," he said. "It was but an evidence of girlish waywardness. It proves how unworldly is this maiden. Do not be offended, I beseech you. Remember, I am your son." All that night he lay, or walked the room, sleepless, and when morning came, went to the queen in a most humble and beseeching manner. "Reverend, and indeed beloved mother, I have here a most holy book. If you will deign to comfort my heart by taking this to the maiden, I trust that its sacredness will ensure more reasonable action from her." Truth to say, the womanish curiosity of the queen was aroused. Without at all suspecting it of herself, she had become interested in this very surprising young person, and consequently persuaded herself to set off again, with the minister of state, to the house of their neighbor across the way. At this visit the young princess herself came down the stairs to greet and escort the royal visitor into her drawing-room. This surprised and gratified the queen, who, straightway, put her hand into her bosom and drew forth the holy book. It was received with reverence, kissed 3 times, and laid carefully away. At this, the queen was emboldened to press the suit of her son. "Oh, my dear young maiden," she said, "since seeing you, my son the prince neither sleeps by night nor rests by day for thinking upon you. If he continues to be affected in this way, his days are numbered. Whatever happens, his fate rests with you. Will you kindly show your face to him once more and permit a little joy to come into his soul?" When she had spoken thus, the one addressed answered, "For no ordinary matter will I permit myself to be looked upon by the prince." "Aye, my child," urged the queen, "order whatever pleases you. If it be possible, it shall be accomplished." "Verily," was the reply, after long and slow thought, "let the prince have a golden bridge builded, with roses planted upon either side. Let him provide a seat at the farther end, in which, if he await me, I will come to him there." "Very well, my daughter, I will report your decision," answered the queen. Then she returned, and, upon meeting her son, said to him, "Of a truth, the Sphinx has broken silence, but her demands are most extraordinary. If you would see her, you are to build a golden bridge, plant roses upon either side, prepare a seat for yourself at the farther end, from which, if you will await her there, she will permit you to gaze upon her. Now it is for you to say, my son, whether this extravagant request of one who came to our shores in a ship encrusted with diamonds shall be granted. There is no divining her next demand." But the prince was blinded by love, and saw nothing impossible which would bring the object of his affection nearer. He caused the bridge to be builded, as she had desired, the borders of roses planted, and a seat prepared at the farther end. Then, after sending respectful assurance that all was according to her requirement, he hastened to the place of waiting. Thereupon the princess caused herself to be arrayed beautifully, and, accompanied by her maidens, went to the bridge. But in some way, as she was crossing it, a branch from one of the rose bushes was blown out by the wind and pricked her in the face. Upon that she complained of being hurt, turned, and went back to her home. Now the prince had been waiting in great eagerness to see her, and was heart-stricken when she turned back. Returning to his mother, he exclaimed, "Everything was done according to her command, but alas, she went away before I could fix my eyes upon her face. I need not put into words that which my mother can read upon my heart." Thereupon the queen became indignant and hastened, of her own will, to the house of their neighbor, where, after she had been greeted, she asked why, with one half of the agreement fulfilled, a prince should be made to wait in vain for a simple glance at a maiden's face. "Aye, queen mother, I cannot go where thorns are placed to prevent my passing. I release all claim to the bridge as well as to the prince. Henceforth he need not vex his soul concerning me." "Aye, my girl," exclaimed the distressed queen, "why will you put us to shame? There must be some reason for these ruses. Be gracious, unburden yourself to me." Then came this answer: "Verily, queen mother, since you seem to believe the matter unintentional, I will speak the truth with you. Make a golden bridge. Upon one side of it place golden, and upon the other silver candlesticks. Then let the prince die and be buried in a tomb at one end of the bridge. Afterward I will stand beside his head, and his eyes may fix themselves upon me." Then the queen arose and hastened away in great anger. "My son," cried she, "the maiden, because of whom we are so put about, went home because a thorn pricked her cheek." "Alas, that it should have hurt her sweet face," sighed the prince. Then arousing himself, "But what are we to do now?" he asked. "The final answer of this young vixen is this, my son. Ah, woe is me that the diamond ship visited our shores. You are to build a golden bridge, as before, and place golden and silver candlesticks upon either side." "That is not difficult," interrupted the prince. "Wait. After that, what think you? My son, you, the prince, are to die and lie in a tomb at one edge of the bridge, after which she will deign to come and stand at your head. Oh, my son, cease this madness. Let me prevail upon you." But the prince became jubilant. He kissed both of his mother's hands 3 times, crying, "So she will come and stand beside me. Have patience, my honored mother. All will be well. I will pretend that grief for her has broken my heart unto death. For her coming one can wait, even in a tomb." "Verily," answered the queen, "you are the prince. You will have your way. We shall see what will result from all this." The next day gold and silver candlesticks replaced the rose bushes along the bridge's sides. A tomb was built, and the prince, arrayed as for burial, was borne upon a litter and laid therein. Let us return to the princess. That night she asked permission from the director of the port, who granted it, that her ship be taken from its moorings in the harbor. All that had been carried from it into the house was returned thereto. Then, with her attendants, she went upon board and sailed near to the tomb in which the prince was lying. The ship ceased plying for a little, and, when all was still, the princess stood at the bow and called out, "Ay, my prince, here is the ship, and yonder is Stamboul." Then all sail was hoisted, and the ship sped away. The prince, who was listening for a light footfall, heard the words of the princess captain. He rose hastily and stood up in his burial clothes to see the ship sailing away. When he felt assured that it was making off, he sank down in deep despair. Arousing himself at last, he was borne to his mother, and when she began to pour forth her indignation, he prevented her, saying, "Alas, alas, now am I enlightened. The fault is my own. I have been loving the same maiden all of the time. You have known, my mother, how I was induced to leave the weeping princess in the crystal kiosk. This is that one, come to avenge herself. Because of my former love, this latter has been intensified. Now do I understand why it has so swept away my reason." The enlightened prince went to his father, kissed his hand, and asked, "O king, my most honored father, once more wilt thou grant permission that I go abroad?" "Most willingly, my son. Only, I pray thee, have a care for thy most precious life. Go, and may happiness attend thee." Then the young man returned to the queen and said, "The way has been made plain before me, O my honored mother. It removes me from my favor of thy presence for a little. Give me thy blessing, I pray." The queen kissed both of his eyes, gave him her blessing, and he went, at once, to set sail upon a ship that belonged to the fleet of his father, the king. It is needless to state that its course was directed toward the crystal kiosk. Arriving there, he dressed himself in princely apparel, alighted, and went directly to the radiant dwelling of the maiden. Now, the princess had seen the approach of the ship, and, when it drew near, she recognized the prince. With her maidens, she met him at the outer door of the kiosk and escorted him up the stairs. When they had entered, he stood before her and asked, "Ay, adored princess, was it not grievous of thee to make me do all those useless things?" "Ay, my prince," answered she, "was it not grievous in thee to come in thy ship, to make me love thee, and then to sail away with those cruel words? How does that matter stand before Allah? Was it just? O my beloved one, guilty indeed is he who seeks thee. But I have suffered 100-fold for all my fault toward thee. Is thy heart stone? Canst thou not forgive? See, I am kneeling before thee." Then they embraced each other and were very happy. Afterwards the princess led her lover to the king, her father, and related all that had passed. When the king had conversed with the prince and found him to be just, honorable, and very greatly in love with his daughter, his heart became glad. He thanked Allah that all had turned out so happily. The next day they were married, and the wedding was celebrated during 40 days and 40 nights. Afterward the young couple spent one half of each year at Yemen and the other half at Stamboul, to the great delight of both kings. Thus 2 kingdoms were united and all peaceful. Salam. The end. End of section 10. End of Told in the Gardens of Araby by Izora C. Chandler and Mary W. Montgomery.